Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. Today we'll be discussing on pituitary tumors. I'm not a endocrinologist, I'm a general physician, but I'll try to make this topic as simple as possible. So today we'll be discussing on pituitary tumors. Means tumor arising from pituitary glands. So it can be adenoma, it can be adenocarcinoma, two commonest tumors. So by definition, it is an endocrine gland cell tumor originating from pituitary gland. It can be a less than 1 centimeter size, we call as a microadenoma. And if it is more than 1 centimeter size, we call as a macroadenomas. It can be inside the, we call as a sella turcica, then we call it the intracellular mass. And if it extend above the, what we call as sella turcica or a pituitary fossa, then we call supracellular mass. It may be hormonally active, means secreting tumors, and if it is not secreting any hormones, then we call it the inactive or a non-secretory tumors. And depending upon the size, now it will start producing a compression on the surrounding structure. So we call it a local signs, and the most common local sign is a compression on the optic chiasma, and that will produce visual defects. And if it is an active, it will produce hormones and it will produce hyperfunction. Depending upon the hormone, hyperprolactinemia, prolactinemia, producing galacturia, amenorrhea, GHH overproduction, growth hormone overproduction, acromegaly or gigantism, ACTH overproduction causing disease, TSH overproduction, either we call as a central hypothyroidism or we call secondary hypothyroidism, and hypofunction. Hypofunction will be there because of the compression of a normal functioning tissue by a tumor, and that will produce initially hyposecretion of some of the hormones, and then all the hormones will be suppressed. Because of compression, the cell will undergo atrophy, and then we get what we call as a panhypopituitarism, or it is also called as a Simon's disease. So you can divide pituitary tumors into one, intracellular, supracellular, inside the sella turcica, outside the sella turcica, functioning or silent, and non-functioning, or we call secretory tumors, non-secretory tumors. Microadenoma small in size, macroadenoma more than 1 centimeter in size. You can have just glandular enlargement, or you can have a gland forming a tumor, adenoma, or it can be a malignant tumor, adenocarcinoma. Depending upon the secreting cells, you can call as a chromophobe cells, chromophil cells. Chromophobe cells are usually non-functioning or we call non-secretory tumors, while chromophil cells can be alpha cell tumors, beta cell tumors. Alpha cell tumor will secrete prolactin and growth hormones, while beta cell tumor will be secreting TSH, ACTH or gonadotropic hormones. And these are the different ways in which the tumors of pituitary gland can be classified. So macroadenomas are bigger than 1 centimeter in size, and micro is less than 10 millimeter, that is 1 centimeter in size. While depending upon the secretion, we call as a secretory tumors, alpha cell tumors or a beta cell tumors, and which does not serve any function, we call it a non-functional or non-secretory tumors. So those are usually chromophobe tumors. Acidophilic tumors, basophilic tumors, chromophobe tumors. Chromophobe tumors are usually non-functioning or non-secretory. Acidophilic cells or alpha cell tumors will be secreting growth hormone and prolactin, while basophilic cells will be secreting ACTH, TSH, gonadotropic hormones. But out of this, most common tumors are tumors which are secreting prolactin. We call hyperprolactinemia, and that is accounting for 20 to 30% of the pituitary tumors. And second common tumors are secreting ACTH, which is 10 to 15%, and then comes gonadotropic hormones secreting tumors. And ACTH and gonadotropics are beta cells, these are alpha cells. Growth hormone secreting tumors are only 5%, and combination of both this is 5%. Totally it is accounting for 40 to 50% of the tumors. While there are some which does not secrete anything, those are called as a null cell adenomas, and that is accounting for 20%. TSH cell adenoma is only 1%, while multiple hormone secreting tumors are accounting for 15%. And this is the way the common presentation is. So prolactin secreting tumors, growth hormone secreting tumors, densely granulated growth hormone cell adenomas, sparsely granulated growth hormone adenomas with fibrous body, thyroid stimulating hormones, and ACTH stimulating, ACTH corticotropic adenomas. These are all the depending upon the hormone secretion, gonadotropic, silent, mixed, which secretes growth hormone as well as prolactin. It is also called as a mamosomatotropic adenomas. Pluri means multiple hormone adenomas, and hormone negative adenomas, or we call null cell adenomas or chromophobe cell adenomas. If it is inside the sella turcica, this then we call as an intracellular. This is anterior lobe, this is posterior lobe tumors. And when it is in the upper part, that is pituitary stalk, extending into the hypothalamic area, we call it as a supracellular. And whenever it is a supracellular, it destroys hypothalamus and it will produce hypopituitarism. While this anterior pituitary will be usually secreting lot of hormones depending upon which cell it is belonging to, and then it will produce hyperpituitarism, compression of the nearby glandular tissue, and will end up with hypofunctions, and that will be the end results. And later on it will end up with what we call as pan-hypopituitarism. While posterior pituitary gland lobes tumor will destroy the cellular structures of posterior pituitary and will result into most common, that is lack of ADH hormone, we call diabetes insipidus. You can have a tumors arising from the other area, and which tumors, particularly craniopharyngiomas, chordomas, meningiomas, secondary metastasis in pituitary gland, histiocytosis, hematomas, as well as secondary deposits because of what we call as hemosiderosis, sarcoidosis, can also destroy the pituitary gland. Etiology wise, one of the most common we call is unknown etiology or idiopathic. One of the etiology for pituitary tumors is genetic etiology or familial. So this is one of the common etiology. Usually there is no environmental factor which is responsible for the pituitary tumors. It is accounting for 10 to 15% of all brain tumors, and 20 to 25% of pituitary glands found to have adenomas. Those are mostly commonly adenomas, and 70% of the adenomas are secreting tumors. And we have already told you, of that 25 to 30% are prolactin secreting tumors. Second is ACTH, and then comes gonadotropic hormones. Or it can be associated with other malignant tumors. 25% are belonging to multiple endocrinomatosis neoplasia, and that is one part of endocrine tissue neoplasia. So this is the common etiology which you can come across in a case of a pituitary tumors. Now this particular 10% of intracranial neoplasm, 25% are accidentally detected, 20% are silent because they do not secrete any hormones or they do not create any pressure. Maximum age is third and fourth decade, that is after 30 years of age. Mostly it is isolated. 3% of the time it may be associated with MEN. Microadenomas are less than 1 centimeter, macroadenomas is more than 1 centimeter, and majority of them are monoclonal, and sometimes it can be plurihormonal, means multiple hormone secreting tumors. We have already given the incidence before. This is another series. Almost 30% are prolactin, growth hormone is 15, ACTH is 10, gonadotropic is 10. So this will be accounting for nearly, if you see, 65 to 70% of the time. Combination 7%, TSH is very rare, 1% only, and non-functioning tumors are 25%. And you can see some you cannot classify them, very difficult to classify them. So again, showing you the same thing, non-functioning tumors are 25%, prolactin are 40%, so this two becomes 65%, rest 10 to 15% growth hormone, ACTH 10 to 15%, gonadotropic is 10 to 15%, and TSH is very, very less, almost close to 1%. Multiple endocrine neoplasia 1 mainly secretes parathyroid hormone, pancreatic hormones, foregut carcinoids, adrenal glands, plus pituitary. And in that, pituitary adenoma is there almost in 40%. While MEN4 is accounting for hyperparathyroidism, pituitary adenomas, and maybe any other tumor. There is another variety called as a Kearney complex where pituitary hyperplasia and adenoma is 10%. You can come across atrial myxomas, schwannomas, adrenal hyperplasia. And familial pituitary adenoma, or we call as a AIP. And this will be accounting for acromegaly, gigantism in 15% of the people. So this is one variety we are also called as AIP. So it is familial pituitary adenomas. So that will be the group. Now pathophysiology wise it is very simple. If the tumor is arising from chromophobes, usually chromophobes are non-secreting cells, so it will produce non-secretory adenomas, and then because of that particular tumor, now when it starts enlarging in size, it will compress basophilic cells and eosinophilic cells, means secretory cells, and you will start getting hypofunctions. But if you got a tumor of acidophilic cells or a basophilic cell, we call alpha cell tumor or a beta cell tumors. If it belongs to acidophilic cells, prolactin secreting tumors are more common than growth hormone secreting tumors. These are accounting for nearly 25 to 30% of the cases, while 10 to 15% will be secreting what we call as a growth hormone, and 7% are mixture of the two, which will secrete both hormones together. While basophilic cells, out of that cells, ACTH secreting tumors are more common. Second common is gonadotropic, and as far as THH secreting tumors are concerned, it is only 1%. Whichever cell tumor it will compress the nearby cell and producing hyposecretion of that, and the end result is pan-hypopituitarism. So try to remember that particular thing. So that is regarding a pathophysiology. Now those particular tumors, when they start getting enlargement, initially if they are secreting tumors, they will be producing overproduction. But because of the compression, now the nearby cells starts producing less hormones. So you start getting hyposecretion, or we call deficiency. And secondarily, it can be single hormone or it can be multiple hormone, resulting into pan-hypopituitarism. It can be locally invasive. It can compress the surrounding structures, particularly cavernous sinus, producing cranial nerve palsy. In that third, fourth, 5, 6. So trigeminal plus 3, 4, 6 extraocular muscle palsy you can come across. It can produce pituitary apoplexy, resulting into pan-hypopituitarism, and the end result is empty sella syndromes. It can be associated with multiple endocrine neoplasia, type 1 syndrome, quite common. It can be also there with a type 4, MEN type 4, and also along with AIP. And there is always a chance of recurrence. Hence, surgical treatment and radiotherapy should be first choice followed by regular follow-up examinations should be done. It can also extend up and give rise to compression in a what we call as a hypothalamus. And when it compresses hypothalamus, we call as a releasing hormones and inhibitory hormones will be hampered, and it will finally result into hypopituitarism. So you've got a microadenomas which can be secreting non-secretory. Macroadenomas will start producing mass effects, and the first effect is on optic chiasma producing bitemporal hemianopias and other different types of visual field defects like quadratic field defects or maybe papilledema, etc. Depending upon the secretion, it will produce hyper of that particular cell, and it will have a pressure effect on other cell producing hypopituitarism of single hormone or maybe multiple hormone, and end result will be pan-hypopituitarism. Because of increase in the size, it will start producing symptom signs of a raised intracranial pressure, pressure effect on cavernous sinus producing third, fourth, fifth and even sixth cranial palsy. It is a gradual expansion. It can expand upwards supracellular producing a compression of hypothalamic area and compressing hypothalamic neurons, neurosecretory cells, and then releasing hormone and inhibitory hormone secretion will be hampered, producing pan-hypopituitarism. You can divide tumor into 4 stages: type A, type B, type C and D. Tumor type A bulges into the chiasma and producing compression of the chiasma. Type B extend further up and starts compressing third ventricle floor of third ventricle. And type C now starts producing compression at the level of foramen of Monro, and then it can produce occult hydrocephalus. And type D, which extends further into temporal fossa and frontal lobe fossa and compressing the other cranial nerves as well as the brain, and this will produce severe raised intracranial pressure. This is which hormones, what functions, and which hormone is controlling. That is what is shown in a single slide. I don't have to repeat because this we have already done in a lecture of hypothalamic things. Nutan. And this slide shows you which is the hormone released by hypothalamus, hormone released from pituitary gland, target organs and what has been released. So if there is a tumor, this level will be high. It will stimulate thyroid gland, increasing thyroid hormone secretions, and then it will result into increased production of a T3T4. But if there is an hormone which is secreted from pituitary glands, but if it compresses hypothalamus, regulatory hormone secretions will be reduced, and that will produce decreased production of these hormones, decreased function of this, and result will be pan-hypopituitarism. So just recapitulate that and see the size of the pituitary gland tumors extending into the supracellular, even compressing the hypothalamic area, third ventricle, and will produce occult hydrocephalus. Good number of times this can be the picture. These are the different, this is a normal pituitary gland. See the staining of a normal pituitary gland. There are a lot of chromophobe cells. Chromophobe cells are nearly more than 50% of the cells, and then they get converted into alpha cell or beta cells. This is a pituitary adenomas showing you single group of cells. So it is called monomorphism of a single group of cells. Then it will be secreting only one hormone. So you can have hypersecretions or hyposecretion depending upon the stage. In case of an adenoma of alpha cell, beta cell, it will be hypersecretions, maybe a single hormone or a multiple hormone depending upon the type of a cell, and then later on it produces compression of the surrounding structure producing a hypo. and then later on, late stage, panhypopituitarism. Also, because of the size, starts producing a mass effect. First effect is on the optic chiasma, producing a visual field defects like bitemporal hemianopias, quadrantic hemianopia, and other visual field defects. And then it can produce compression on the hypothalamus, producing decreased production of the releasing hormone, or we call trophic hormones, and inhibitory hormones, producing panhypopituitarism. So it can produce bitemporal hemianopia, superior temporal field defects, we call quadrantic field defects, and then later on it can also produce complete pituitary apoplexy, and then that will end up into panhypopituitarism, we call as a Simon's disease. And also there will be hardly any pituitary tissue left inside, we call as a empty sella syndrome. You will have a neurological symptoms in the form of a raised intracranial pressure, that is headache, vomiting, blurred vision. Third, fourth, and sixth cranial nerve palsy, which are present in a cavernous sinus, producing extraocular muscle palsy, which will produce strabismus, diplopia, etc., absence of movement of the eyeball. It can produce temporal lobe seizures because it can extend very easily into temporal lobes. You can have meningeal signs in the form of a Kernig signs, Brudzinski sign. Ophthalmological signs in the form of a visual field defects. We have already told you bitemporal hemianopia, quadrantic field hemianopia, that is superior temporal quadrantic field hemianopia, bitemporal hemianopias. You can have exophthalmos when all the muscles are paralyzed, and you can have, we call ophthalmoplegias, extraocular muscle ophthalmoplegias. As far as radiological sign is concerned, damage to the anterior and posterior clinoid process, widening of the pituitary fossa, enlargement of the pituitary fossa, or we call sella turcica. Then you start getting symptom signs and radiological signs over the skull, that is we call as a silver beaten appearance. Then signs of pituitary adenomas in the form of acromegaly, which will be thickening of the skull bones, can be seen on radiological picture. So these are some of the findings which you can come across in case of a pituitary tumor syndromes. You can have a functional abnormality in the form of hyperpituitarism in a secreting tumors, and later on it can end up with a single hormone hypopituitarism or a multiple hormone hypopituitarism, or we call as a panhypopituitarism, we call Simon's disease. We already discussed regarding a mass effects. You can have even bony erosion, disruption of the diaphragm of sella, compression of optic chiasma, ending up with a bitemporal hemianopia and other visual field defects. You can have a hemorrhage secondary to mass effects, producing pituitary apoplexy, and then it will end up with a panhypopituitarism, we call it a Simon's disease. Raised intracranial pressure will produce nausea, vomiting, confusion, dizziness, and it can also have seizures. You can have a destruction of a floor of the sella turcica, resulting into a cerebrospinal fluid rhinorrhea, or we call runny or drippy nose, because of cerebrospinal fluid leaks out into the nose, and that we call as a CSF rhinorrhea, which also you can have in a case of an head injury with basal fracture skull. Pituitary apoplexy is because of the hemorrhage, large adenoma leading to an hemorrhage and destruction or the infarction of the pituitary gland. It occurs very commonly in pregnancy, and that we call as a postpartum pituitary apoplexy, or it is also called as Sihan syndrome. There is a compression of a hypophyseal portal venous system resulting into this ischemia and necrosis, or we call it infarction, or we also use the word pituitary apoplexy. Along with that, you can have hyperacute chiasmal syndromes. Here you will need a surgery and you might need a high dose of steroids. There is something called as a chiasmal syndrome, which will be a compression of the optic chiasma producing blurred vision, headache, compression of the surrounding structures of cavernous sinus, which will produce extraocular muscle palsy and diplopia, color desaturation, visual field defects, optic atrophy, post-fixation blindness, visual hallucination, and even nystagmus. So these together, some of this finding together is called as a chiasmal syndrome. Visual field defect, we already told you, bitemporal hemianopia, quadrantic homonymous hemianopia, bitemporal central scotomas, diffuse scotomas, junctional scotomas, etc. can be visual field defects in a case of pituitary adenomas depending upon the site and amount of compression at optic chiasmas. We have already discussed all these things before. Different types of tumors, secreting tumors, non-secreting tumors, intracellular, supracellular, microadenoma, macroadenoma, local signs, hormonal dysfunctions. Usually a secreting tumors will have a hyperfunction, and when non-secretory tumors or a secretory tumors compresses the surrounding tissue will produce hypopituitarism, and then later on at the end stage panhypopituitarism. So these are all what we have discussed before: raised intracranial pressure signs, headache, nausea, vomiting, convulsions, visual disturbances, diplopia, drooping eyelids, visual field defects, chiasmal syndromes. When posterior pituitary tumors are there, it will destroy the neurons and it will produce diabetes insipidus. If it is a tumor of hypothalamus secreting ADH hormones, particularly we call as a paraoptic nucleus, then it can produce SIDH. Because of compressing the foramen of Monro and third ventricle, obstructive hydrocephalus. In cavernous sinus, it can produce third, fourth, fifth, in fifth, V1 and V2 segment, and sixth cranial nerve can be compressed. There can be destruction of the floor of the sella turcica producing cerebrospinal fluid, rhinorrhea, etc. These are all the combined pictures. We have already mentioned the percentage of tumors: prolactinoma 35%, growth hormone tumors 20%, ACTH around 7 to 10%, gonadotropic 1%, non-secretory adenomas is 30%, TSH is less than 1%, and diabetes insipidus is very commonly because of the posterior pituitary tumor destroying the axon fibers of neurosecretory cells coming out from paraventricular nucleus and we call as a supraoptic nucleus, paraventricular and supraoptic nucleus of hypothalamus. These are all the classification we already mentioned depending upon the secreting tumors. Already we mentioned before. Null cell are usually which does not secretory, we call as a non-secretory tumors or chromophobe tumors, and it can end up with what we call as a panhypopituitarism. You can see this particular person is having extraocular muscle palsy. This will be the effects depending upon where it is compressing. Pituitary tumor, where it is compressing. So depending upon the compression, it will produce stretching of the dura mater by what we call as tumors. It can produce compression at the foramen of Monro, producing hydrocephalus, third ventricle compression, compression of the optic chiasma, visual field defects, compression of the surrounding structures of pituitary fossa, that is we call cavernous sinus, and then it will start producing cranial nerve palsy and destruction of the floor of the mouth, cerebrospinal fluid, rhinorrhea. So you can remember this particular picture. So here you can see this is a pituitary tumor extending onto the two sides, producing compression of cavernous sinus structures. And if it extends down, it will destroy the floor of the mouth or the floor of the sella turcica and produces CSF rhinorrhea. If it extends up, optic chiasma, and then further extending up third ventricle and hypothalamic area. And when it compresses third ventricle, your opening, it will produce occult hydrocephalus, and compressing hypothalamus, the releasing hormones of hypothalamus will be compressed. This is the same thing shown here. If this starts compressing, it will compress optic chiasma, it can compress cavernous sinus structures, etc. And this is how the compression can take place. If this compress, bitemporal homonymous hemianopia. If only one side is compressed, you can have one side temporal field gone. If it is a portion of this being compressed, quadrantic field loss will be there. So this is if there is a hyperprolactin secretions, amenorrhea, galactorrhea, libido and infertility are the prime symptoms. And hypersecretion of prolactin will also produce in female amenorrhea and galactorrhea, while in a male hypogonadism, impotency, sterility, libido, gynecomastia and sometimes even galactorrhea. So this can be seen in male and this is what is seen very commonly in female, infertility, amenorrhea and galactorrhea. So these are all those symptoms plus mass effects, raised intracranial pressure signs, compression of optic chiasma, etc. So you will have a hormone hypersecretions, raised intracranial pressure signs, mass effects. This will be all combined together in prolactin and it is the most common tumor. It is accounting for 25 to 30% of the tumor. A growth hormone tumor will produce gigantism if it is before the epiphyseal closure, and if it is after the epiphyseal closure it will produce acromegaly. I am not going into detail. You will have a skin changes, facial changes, enlargement of the head, macroglossia, etc. We will be doing separately all this. These are a lot of different pictures which shows you how the person of acromegaly will look like and gigantism will look like, and what will be the, this is acromegaly. You can see the normal, this is abnormal, this is normal, this is abnormal. In acromegaly what you get come across, if you got an ACTH overproduction, you come across what we call as a Cushing syndrome or we call Cushing disease, and this will be the typical obesity, typical face we call as a moon face, buffalo hump, etc. I'm not going into detail, we'll be dealing when we do Cushing syndromes. So this is the entire picture. You will have a stria, purplish stria, you will have a central obesity, thin limbs, etc. If you have got a gonadotropic hormones oversecretions in a male, you will have a loss of libido due to decreased production of a testosterone, while in a female, amenorrhea in a premenopausal woman, and paradoxically it is associated with secondary gonadal hypofunction we call hypogonadism in male as well as female. And when you get thyroid stimulating hormone being oversecreted, irregular heartbeat because of thyrotoxicosis, weight loss, insomnia, increased frequency, that is we call diarrhea, sweating, etc. And in a non-functioning tumor, usually they are silent and they compresses functioning tumors or functioning cells, and then they will produce what we call as hypopituitarism. So silent tumors in the beginning, and then it will start compressing the hormone negative cells, hormone cells. In a craniopharyngioma, it is extending from above, extends downwards and compresses the pituitary gland, producing destruction of the pituitary glands, and then it will end up with what we call as hypopituitarism. First hormone to be affected is a growth hormones, and then you can also have a mass effects. In a multiple endocrine neoplasia 1, you can have a pancreas, parathyroid and pituitary together, all with P, pancreas, parathyroid and pituitary, and you can have hypersecretion of all these hormones. Later on they can end up with a hypo. These are all the symptoms and signs what we have mentioned before. Means depending upon the tumor, non-secretory, secretory, depending upon the size, depending upon the mass, compression effects, optic chiasma, cavernous sinus, hypothalamus, third ventricle, temporal lobe, frontal lobe, etc. Depending upon those compression and even destruction of the floor of sella turcica, what are all those symptoms and signs? Mass effect, raised intracranial pressure signs, optic chiasma compressions, extraocular muscle palsy, etc. together. In investigation, the first investigation is history examination, will give you a lot of ideas. Visual field defect assessment is very, very important to find out the compressive symptoms on optic chiasma. MRI, CT scan and X-ray lateral skull, X-ray skull lateral view will help you to identify the size of the tumor and effect on a pituitary fossa, clinoid process, effect on the skull bones, suture lines, etc. So because of the mass effect, raised intracranial pressure, you will have a separation of sutures, silver bittern appearance, widening of pituitary fossa, etc. While in case of a growth hormone, acromegaly, you will have a thickening of the skull bones, which can be easily detected. Then you can go for a hormonal assay to find out which cell tumor it is. So you can go for growth hormone levels, prolactin levels, ACTH level, TSH level. That will give you an idea regarding secretory tumors, non-secretory tumors. You can do it by hormonal assay or radioimmunoassays. And then you can go for a different radiography. So history, physical examination, CT scan, MRI and skull X-ray lateral view. Serum hormonal level, provocative test, neurological examination, visual field defects examination and 24-hour urine test for hormonal assay should be done. You can go for a transsphenoidal biopsy to find out whether it is adenoma or adenocarcinoma and histopathological classification which types of cell tumor. It is a chromophobes, alpha cell or beta cell tumors. Endocrine investigation like what I've already told you, serum examination, you can go for stress test, stimulatory test, inhibitory test. We have already mentioned regarding ocular investigations, that is visual field defects analysis, Hayes or Lees chart test, etc. MRI CT scan, this is a plain X-ray showing you widening of a pituitary fossa. You can see the thickening of the bones. Here you can see a big pituitary tumor. So that can be identified by a CT scan or an MRI. You can see here this is a pituitary fossa in a normal person. While here you can see there is a thickening of the skull bone in an acromegaly and you can see the pituitary fossa is widened. There is a silver bittern appearance because of a raised intracranial pressure. And if you take a lateral skull, you can see that the maxillary bone, this is maxillary bone, this is a mandibular bone. This mandibular bone extends beyond maxillary bone, we call prognathism. So the lower jaw is ahead of upper jaw. You can identify craniopharyngioma also on CT scan, which is arising from a hypothalamus. You can see the extension of the tumor, pituitary tumor, into surrounding structures. You can find out from a CT or MRI. You can see that it is extending into the temporal lobe. So these are different X-ray skull. This is a lateral X-ray skull, widening of pituitary fossa. This is CT scan, and this is coronal section showing you the pituitary gland tumors. This is pituitary gland tumors. You can see a pituitary gland tumor. MRI scans are better than CT scans. Hormonal evaluations. These are all the different hormone evaluation and different stimulating tests as well as suppressing tests to find out the hormone level. As far as management is concerned, one is medical therapy in case of hypo replacement therapy, while in case of overproduction, you can use some of the drugs which blocks the secretion and can reduce the size of the pituitary gland. In case of a tumor, irrespective of the type of a tumor, you can go for a decompression therapy or partial resection or a complete resection, that is surgical therapy, or you can take an advantage of what we call as an adjunct therapy like radiation. There are some advantages, disadvantages of radiation. There are also advantages and disadvantages of surgical therapy, that is resection, partial or complete resection. When you do a complete resection, there is always a chance of what we call as a panhypopituitarism. So always keep a watch for that. So depending upon the indications, etc., you can decide what treatment can be done. So plain simple observation in a non-secretory tumors. Medical therapy, particularly a dopamine agonist, bromocriptine or cabergoline, which can be utilized to decrease the size of the secretory tumors, and that can decrease the pituitary gland tumors, and then you can follow up by a surgery. So if there is a compressive symptoms, you can go via the endoscopic treatment, endoscopic surgery, transsphenoidal or transfrontal lobe, or you can go via craniotomy, and you can do a surgery if there is a visual field defects. Visual field recovery is in a triphasic stages. These are macroadenoma. Usually if it is a non-secretory tumors we observe. If it is a secretory tumors and if there is a hormonal imbalance or there is a visual abnormality, usually you go for the treatment part. And in that treatment part, first is drugs, second is surgery, and third is radiotherapy. So this is transsphenoidal radiotherapy you can give, or you can go for a surgery, transsphenoidal surgery. This is before surgery, this is after surgery. This is after surgery. This is, you can see the compression. Now the compression is reduced. Optic chiasma is now no longer compressed. Surgery can be transsphenoidal, endoscopic surgery, or transcranial tumor removal. You can go for a radiation therapy like stereotactic radiosurgery or external beam radiation, and you can go for a hormone replacement in case of a hypopituitarism. So this is transsphenoidal surgery, endoscopic surgery, or you can go for a direct splenectomy. Most commonly nowadays utilized is a endoscopic surgery. You can go for a drug therapy, that is dopamine agonist. You can use octreotide in a person with a acromegaly and TSH secreting tumors. And in a case of deficiency, you can go for a hormonal replacement therapy. In a prolactinemia, dopamine agonists like bromocriptine and cabergoline. So you can use somatostatin octreotide in a person who are having, we have already shown you, acromegaly or TSH producing tumors. Bromocriptine and cabergoline in a person who is having what we call as a prolactinemias or growth hormone secreting tumors. So these are the drugs which helps a lot in a person with acromegaly. Surgery and radiotherapy we have already mentioned. In a radiotherapy, conventional radiotherapy, stereotactic radiotherapy, gamma knife, external beams, etc. In a Cushing syndrome, you can go for what we call as an adrenalectomy, secondary due to if it is because of a ACTH excess. Prolactinemia, we already told you bromocriptine and cabergoline is a drug of choice, or you can go for what we call as surgery and radiotherapy. Complication wise, it can produce hypersecretion tumors, mass effects, intracranial pressure, occult hydrocephalus, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth cranial palsy, chiasmal compression, bitemporal hemianopia, different types of other field defects like scotomas, quadratic field loss, etc. Hypersecreting secretion of a hormone, hyperpituitarism, prolactin, growth hormone, ACTH, Cushing syndromes, gonadotropic secretions, and very rare TSH. And end result will be hypopituitarism, and then further will end into panhypopituitarism. These are all hypersecretions, hyperprolactinemia, acromegaly, gigantism, Cushing's disease, secondary hyperparathyroidism, and in a case of a gonadotropic, infertility and menstrual disorders, amenorrhea. So I end my lecture here on pituitary gland tumors. I hope this will be helpful to you in your everyday practice.